Yo guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another Bike of the Week. This week we are going to be talking about Ben Brown. Now Ben Brown is not your average motocross rider or average guy in general. This guy's an absolute badass. So for you guys that follow me on Instagram, you probably saw my post. Ben Brown is a T5 paraplegic and he is paralyzed from the chest down. So he actually got injured doing racing motocross on a 300EX. He clipped a jump the wrong way, and unfortunately he ended up getting injured and severing his spine, and that didn't stop him, man. This guy still raced motocross. He did the Redbud National, racing against guys like Tim Farr and some other pro riders. The dude's clearing jumps and stuff, paralyzed from the chest down. That's absolutely unreal, man. This guy has the mentality of David Goggins. If you guys aren't familiar with David Goggins, the dude's like one of the hardest motherfuckers alive, and just has that mentality that no matter what, you're gonna keep going, and that's exactly how Ben Brown is. So Ben Brown actually got into ATV riding when he was younger, and he was riding around on a Recon 250. If you guys don't know what a Recon is, it's basically an entry-level utility sport type machine. It's basically a two-wheel drive utility. It's shaft driven. It's like a 250EX, but even more utility than sport. Not the kind of quad that you would typically think somebody would get started with motocross, but this dude was ripping jumps with it, and he was competing with it, and he was beating guys on Banshees, believe it or not, on the track. But you know how it is, man. If you're familiar with any kind of racing at all, it's all about the rider, not the machine. So from riding that Recon, he actually earned the name Recon Master, and he eventually moved into a 300EX, and he raced the 300EX riding motocross, and I mean, he was ripping it up, man. Some of these pictures are not the greatest, because you got to remember, this is back in like the early 2000s, and not everybody had smartphones and stuff taking crispy pictures like we are today. But you can see he was shredding and he was killing it, and unfortunately that's when he got injured. So after the injury, Ben basically just would not lie down, man. He still wanted to race. The doctor told him to take up wheelchair racing, and he was basically like, dude, hell no, I'm going to continue doing motocross. And he bought a YFC 450, had it customized to his needs, and I'm going to show you that quad in a second here. And he continued to race, I think, for 5 more years, on and off. And like I said, he competed in the Redbud National, and like the dude's clearing jumps that were like 40 feet, 40-foot doubles he was still clearing. He did a lot of tabletop jumps and stuff. And just to be a competitive rider in that condition absolutely boggles my mind, because I'm not like a motocross rider or anything, but I have ridden on motocross tracks. And for anybody that's even just ridden a quad, not jumped it, I can't imagine not using body language to handle a jump. I'd honestly be, I'd be pretty afraid to go off a jump if I had to only use my arms and I was strapped to a quad. I mean, he is literally bound to this quad, racing against other riders. It's absolutely unbelievable and super inspiring. Awesome, awesome story. So after the accident, Ben ended up hooking up with Todd Mackey, who runs a program for people in our sport who ride with disabilities or are paraplegics, stuff like that. And it's called ART. It's Ability Riders of the Future. And he found Ben, and they wound up working together. And Todd hooked him up and got him to doing the Redbud National, and they actually both raced in that together. And there's a picture right here of Todd Mackey, Ben, and I believe that's Doug Dust. All right, so I'm going to walk you through the YFC 450 that Ben had modified to his needs. These pictures right here, I believe, are the way that he bought it. You can see it looks like a pretty much stock YFC 450. I think it was an 06. Looks like it's got a White Brothers exhaust on it. And there you can see Ben right next to his new machine. Now, this is kind of a difficult picture to see, but this is actually a snowboard binding. So he was literally physically bound to this quad when he would race it, because you got to remember, he was from half of his chest down, not even just his chest down, from half of his chest down, he's completely paralyzed. So he has to be attached to the machine. So he would put his feet in these bindings. Initially, I think he said they were like ratchet strapping him down, but that wasn't really working. Like halfway through the ride, he'd start falling out. So he got the bindings on there. There's these custom knee pads, and there's a strap going across the seat. There's another shot of the seat, and you can see there's a nice hump in the back so he doesn't fly off the back. He's got Never Give Up on the back. Pretty badass. And you can see the pads up here because when you're hitting the brakes and stuff, his body would start sliding forward. And here's a picture. This actually isn't that same YFC 450. This is a different YFC. When he was flown out to do the Red Bud National, he had to use a different machine, and they transferred his gear over to another machine. But you can see the bindings right here. He's bound in that machine, the knee pads up here. And you can see, if you look close back here, he's resting right up against that pad in the back. He also had a custom exhaust shield made because he can't feel when his leg would be up against the motor, so his leg could be like burning and on fire and he wouldn't even know it. So they had a custom exhaust shield on there so they wouldn't catch on fire. And this is a recluse clutch he had put in so that he could still shift. And on the other side you can see, I think Pingle makes this setup. I'm not 100% sure. Actually, I think you can see it says Pingle right there on it. But that's a special shifter for people that can't use their feet. I'm not sure if this is the shifter or not. I'm not 100% familiar with these systems, but I'm pretty sure that's the shifter right there. And he had a special setup too for the rear brake. So here's a shot of the bike with the custom modifications on it. At first glance, you know, it kind of just looks like a normal quad. Then he moved on to get the frame powder coated, swing arm, the subframe. You can see he got some Elka suspension on there and long travel A-arms. And here's another shot, a good shot of the knee pads up here, and you can see the bindings down here. And this, I believe, is that's a whole shot device on there. And there's a good shot of the machine right there. It's a badass looking bike. So in reality, there's not really all that many modifications done to the quad to make it so that Ben could ride it. In fact, like I was saying in that one picture, it's not even a picture of his machine because Ben's in Canada. To fly him to the Red Bud Nationals, it didn't make sense to bring his machine down there, so he actually brought his equipment, and they were easily able to transfer that over to another YFC 450. They did have some issues with the recluse clutch during his race, and he wound up running without a recluse clutch, and he just kept the quad in third gear and did the entire race in third gear. So no doubt Ben's story is super inspirational, and I'm going to actually have an interview in this video that will be in a couple minutes from here where Ben and I are talking about his experiences and everything and how he got into wheelchair racing, which is a totally unknown sport to me and to a lot of people too. It's kind of you know, something that a lot of us, you know, we're not even aware of. But this guy's doing like extreme times, and the guy's work ethic is just unbelievable. So a lot of you guys know that I'm really into fitness, and I actually take fitness pretty seriously. Before I did my ATV channel, I was actually considering doing a fitness YouTube channel as opposed to ATVs, and so I know how much work goes into, you know, staying into, you know, good shape, and Ben's training is like far beyond my training. The stuff that he's doing is very, very specialized, and it's for a totally different purpose than what I'm going for. But just from, I've actually had the pleasure of talking to Ben for a couple weeks now. We've had a couple video calls, and our initial interview actually got lost. Unfortunately, it didn't record, and it's a shame because it was an awesome interview, but this one's awesome too. And just talking with Ben here and there, and even just like off of ATVs, just talking to him, he's an awesome guy, and I can just tell his mentalities and everything are top notch, man. And just with the way that the world is today, and so many people complain about the stupidest stuff, and Ben's just got this super positive attitude, and he takes extreme ownership of what happened to him. Not once did I hear him saying that he's pointing the finger, you know, like somebody else is at fault for this, or playing the victim in any way, shape, or form. This dude just, you know, points in a direction and goes, man, and just kills it. And I have the utmost respect for this guy. Ben is a class act for sure. I think no matter what happened in his life, he would be a badass no matter what. So without going much more in depth, I'm going to actually finish this video out with the interview because it's a 30+ minute interview and there's tons of information in there, and it's just awesome to hear Ben's side of the story. Give me a thumbs up if you're enjoying this content. That really helps me out, guys. And please let us know in the comment section below what you think of Ben's awesome story. And I will see you guys in the next video. So please enjoy this interview, and also make sure to check out Ben. He's online. He's got a t-shirt store called Get After It. I'm gonna have all of the tags in the description below. He's on Facebook and on Instagram. If you guys are interested in rocking one of his t-shirts, definitely hit him up on Instagram and he can get you set up, and you can show your support for him. All right, guys, so without further ado, peace out. I'm gonna take you to the interview, and I'll see you in the next one. What is going on, guys? I'm sitting here with Ben Brown, who is nothing short of a legend. Ben brings a work mentality to the table that is rivaled by very few people. This guy just will not take no for an answer. So Ben, you were paralyzed while racing a 300EX while you were younger, and you just would not say no, and ended up on a YFC 450 that was custom made for your needs after you were paralyzed from the T5, which is from the chest down. You were paralyzed. Absolutely unbelievable. Now, from what I understand, you actually started racing on a Honda Recon and or earned the name Recon Master.
Yeah, like so, my parents got separated when I was like almost 15, and Dad bought a Honda, like brand new out of the dealership, Honda 450 Foreman S, like the foot shifter model. And a year later, or less than a year later, we figured we needed separate ATVs, so we didn't have the passenger up, and and that way I could go riding with my friends with a smaller machine. Because the problem was I was a late bloomer of puberty and growth. So to give it in perspective, I was 5'3" when I graduated high school, and now I'm 6'1". So I needed something like height-wise to match, and I decided, because I really enjoyed watching the local like ops course races and reading Dirt Wheels magazines and seeing the ATV motocross, the TTs, the woods races, the works races, and desert races coverage. And just like, okay, I eventually went. The racing bug hit me, but also, I mean, that's probably coming from watching the Speed Channel. I grew up like most Canadian kids playing hockey, so sports in general was a big thing for me. So I liked competing to begin with, and then I did the local county fair races for like almost two summers on that recon, and because I wanted to get into motocross, I needed a sport machine, and just again because of my lack of height and everything, I decided to start off with a 300EX. I could have gone 400, but I just figured, why not start with 300? The worst case scenario, within a year or so, I'm going to have to upgrade, and probably if I upgrade at that point, it's going to be a 450 anyway, because as you know, the 450s in 2005 are becoming the norm for racing and sport use in general. I'm not saying that Banshees and tractors and 250Rs were still not being used, but more and more people were buying 450s at the time. So we got the 300EX, and I raced it. My first race other than Nerf cars and tether cord was pretty much bone stock. And then I'd say the next race I had a pipe on it, like Brothers E-Series slip on. Then I ended up bending the axle. Actually, first I snapped the stock shocks on the front. And that was because the 300EX, for anyone that knows any history on it, they use a 3/8 fixed spot weld on the eyelets. So any type of aggressive riding, whether it's on the motocross track or in the woods, you'll eventually snap that front shock off. So I had my friend Chris England, he sold me his stock 400EX front end because he already had like a long travel setup on his 400EX. And you can't just, as you know, with anyone that's ever built a 300EX, you can't just bolt on a 400EX front end. You either have to modify the frame or buy a bolt-on kit. And my buddy Andrew Van Hatten, who's a fabricator, recognized that it was much better for him to actually modify my frame than it was to go buy one of these bolt-on kits, because the bolts, he said, eventually will just snap off during the race potentially,
Right.
or the brackets that bolt on would potentially crack. So we did that, and then later that summer, other than blowing rear shock, I bent the axle, so I got a Durablue axle, and went back to another stock rear shock, because again, whereas a 300EX, and I knew I was going 450 in less than 2 years, I was trying to keep everything within reason of modification. And I was trying to find originally a 2001 Raptor rear shock, because those 660 the rear shocks of a 660 Raptor didn't have a piggyback reservoir. They had a remote resi, and you could actually bolt it right on with no frame modification. But of course, most people with 660 Raptors typically don't, or didn't change the suspension. They just went on trail road, right? So it's hard to find that rear shock, right? So then that winter we modified the motor a little bit just to get a little more power out of it, and after that, I in 2006 did some more racing, finished top 10 in my class for it's called junior class for ATVs, because we only had 2 classes at the time in Atlanta, Canada, and that was junior and pro. And again, racing against a bunch of 450s mostly. And the night before my paralysis, I did a local county fair off-course race. I actually finished at a 10th out of 40 machines. Again, open class machines, right? So then the next morning I was trying out a brand new track, came up short on a jump, and during the second or third flip when the quad threw me over the handlebars, a lawn dart on me. I broke my right side scapula, crushed my T5 and T6 vertebrae, and half an hour into the ambulance wait was when my spinal cord burst and couldn't feel my legs, and come find out that night I'm paralyzed at the chest down. And well, I was asked at first, why don't I try wheelchair racing instead of wanting to still race quads, and I kind of told the doctor where to go and how to get there.
And you said that jump like wasn't groomed correctly, right? It was like it kind of launched you off funny.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was like it was a straight up face, but a straight down, like a stubby landing. And my rear end just nicked the top of it and bombed out. And because my dad was paying for the parts at the time, I would run a swing on the skid plate when I practiced, just so then I wouldn't bend rotors and sprockets.
What made you want to continue to keep riding, especially being
Yeah.
paralyzed from the chest down? I mean, deciding to continue to do motocross is kind of crazy. And what exactly did you do to the like? How did you find that you could still ride? And what did you do to the YFC 450 so that you'd be able to ride it and do motocross?
Well, first off, get back to getting back into riding. So the surgeon I had, when I realized I was never going to walk in, once everything just sunk in, he proved to me the next day after my depression started to set in for that short period. He proved me wrong that I could still ride and race ATVs at the level I wanted, with or the intensity I should say, with some pictures of a guy on a dirt bike, Ricky James, and then so we sold the 300EX later that winter. Bought a YFZ 450 for my buddy Andrew McCammon, who I raced ATVs with, because he just restored this kind of thing. So we bought it. Got my buddy Glenn Baker at his upholstery and auto glass shop to add more foam to the seat, redo the seat like upholstery. So we put leg straps and hump on the back, so that way I wouldn't slip off the quad. And then after the first summer, we did put on the snowboard bindings that winter again, just to keep my feet strapped down, because we were using bungee straps and those weren't really doing the job. My feet would stay straight, but every 10 laps or so, my feet would just go like this. So then trying to keep myself balanced was like an absolute nightmare sometimes. And we also had the
That's crazy, man.
oh yeah, and then we had the knee blocks again, just to do two things: keep me from standing, but to keep me from burning my right leg off from the exhaust, because I can't feel my legs. I wouldn't know if my legs getting hot or not. And then
Right.
and then Andrew Van Hatten, he made a custom heat shield for my exhaust, just enough to make sure, because the heat shield, as you know, with most quads, they are ventilated,
Right.
so it's not really going to make a difference, for someone that can't feel their legs. Whereas this one was just a solid piece of steel, just to make sure that I wasn't going to get hot, that kind of thing.
Right.
We put on the original Z-Start Recluse and the Z-Start rear brake as well. And then we did track down a Pengal electric shifter, which did work, but it was made for street drag racing. And what happened over time, within 2 years, was, or maybe in less than 3 years, was it got, with all the mud and everything collecting inside, it just fried it. So, and most of the time when I was on a motocross track anyways, I just put it in second and third gear, because the 450 you don't really need to shift very often, and away I went.
Dude, that's absolutely crazy to me. And I remember you telling me too. I think you said 40-foot gaps and beyond, you wouldn't jump them because you're literally bound to the quad, like you're strapped to it, so you can't bail. So I mean, I just can't imagine. It's absolutely nuts, dude. But I remember you saying something like that where if it was like a certain gap, you would just roll the jump. You wouldn't actually jump it.
Yeah. So any open gap jump that was 40 feet or over 40 feet, I would not touch. And it's funny how I decided. There's one track. The first time I did a county off-course race was like a month after I got back on a quad, and I rolled it the first time, and the second time I was like, man, this is only 20 feet. I'm on 450. I'll just give it a shot of gas, and lo and behold, I was well over it. And then and that was in 2007. and we built a motocross track in my backyard shortly right after that, and just started riding. And it was all singles and tabletops anyways at first. And then eventually we would add rhythm sections, but I would just kind of roll it depending on what it was. Because what I did is I built a track not just for myself, but for my friends to come over and ride. Because some tracks would not let quads ride, as you know the struggle of how it is.
Right.
So I just wanted a place where me and my buddies, whether they rode dirt bikes or ATVs, all could come together and ride them free of charge. And because it didn't really cost, people wanted to give my dad fuel money for the track for using the farm equipment, but it's like he said, building the track didn't really burn any fuel for him, so don't worry about it, kind of thing. And during that time too, so after 2007, or during the winter, I got in contact with Todd Mackey, and he lives with cerebral palsy, and he got me to my first ATV national at Redbud in 2008 with some help of other sponsors, and because of that, I was connected with like Fast Company, JV Racing, so the modifications kept increasing, and I ended up buying from a friend / sponsor his used long travel setup from Elkin and Lone Star up front, and a rear shock as well. So those things changed. So the quad got better and better as as the years went on. Like I said, did the U.S. National at Redbud where I raced 2C classes, didn't qualify for the mains, but Amy Ritchie, the track owner, allowed me to race the KTM class, so I got to race with like some pros, including legends like Tim Farr and Shane Hitt, so that was pretty cool. And you talked about that 40-foot gap, so I'd be all over the place. Decided I was doing an arena cross 2 weeks before Redbud, 2 weeks before I left for Redbud, or a week before, and the reason why I did this arena cross because the organizers were not involved with the Atlantic Canadian regional organizing body, so they decided to let me race because they knew I just wanted to go out and have fun with my buddies, kind of thing, and prove a point. And it was really cool. So that's when I became Canada's first unofficial paraplegic to race motocross, whether it's ATVs or dirt bikes. And there was the first couple laps I did, first practice, first lap or two, I rolled, and I was like thinking to myself as I was hitting the jump, I was like, you know what? I know I can make this jump. Like the way the burn was, I just had to hit it, go around the top, roll it, and then just nail it. And every time I smoked it and landed super smooth. Just the kicker was, as the race got on, my buddy put me in the hockey boards, which I had a good laugh about. And then the first practice, the whoops section was super easy, so I could actually skim through and it didn't bother me. And then the next one got a little bit more challenging. And then the third, they kept it because it wasn't challenging enough for the dirt bikes, and it got to a point where I actually had to roll. And what happened was one of my buddies, because I'd let my friends get around me because I didn't want to interrupt their race, kind of thing. But my problem was, and I never realized this until like as years got on with the wheelchair racing, because I'm paralyzed chest down. When I do a shoulder check, I turn my body and not just my head. Like, I can't. It's harder for me to do that when I do my shoulder check. And when I did that, I actually turned the handlebar, and he hit me, and we both went down. Like, didn't go down, but we had to stop and whatever. We finished the race, and he was kind of pissed or whatever. And you know what? It happened, and we just realized later on it was like, no big deal, right? It was just heat of the moment kind of thing.
Right.
And like I said, I did Redbud and found out I couldn't go race locally 2 weeks after Redbud, just because insurance reasons for strapping myself down. So that's when I decided, okay, I'm gonna have to find another organizing body in my local area, or just start traveling to the U.S. And fortunately found a track in Cape Breton that allowed me, until they were sick of quads, to go race there. And I did the Unadale National in 2009, where I finished in the top 10 in one class, and one of the C classes.
That's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
And I remember you telling me when you were racing in the one race against Tim Farr and Shane Hitt, you said at one point, I think Tim Farr passed you, and you said he gave you the thumbs up as you passed him, and that was kind of like a really iconic moment and very memorable for you.
Oh yeah, I didn't care. I knew I was going to get lapped by quite a few of those guys. So like, at that point, I still got my 4 laps in, but at that point, I was just like, you know what, whatever. I don't care. Right. I was pretty happy with that. And Shane Hitt too. He was pretty pumped. Shane and I still chat from time to time for the last like 11 or now 12 years, right? So I mean that's pretty cool. Like because of Todd, I got so connected with so many American riders and that I'm still friends with today, both in the pro and the amateur ranks. That no, even they no longer ride, we still chat. He was able to connect me with multiple sponsors that I didn't have, like company sponsors. PowerMad they sponsored me before my injury, and I told them what's up and let them know. And PowerMad got back to me ASAP, and since then they've hooked me up. And they said I gave them the heads up when I had to stop racing and focus on wheelchair racing. They said, look, and the same thing with Fast Company and a few others. They said, like, you know, the day you get back on a quad, let us know. We'll make sure you're looked after. I'm like, thanks. And that's a really cool thing about like the ATV racing community. Like, yes, I'm doing a whole different sport now, but they're still behind me.
So yeah, after you raced ATVs for a little bit, what really made you want to transition into wheelchair racing?
Well, I was already doing it from start. Like, so I did my first wheelchair race after Univille National, and I was still doing like I did like one or two more motocross races after 2009, but I just didn't have the funds in 2010 to really race, and I ended up not really racing until the end of the summer 2010, and then I managed to get one or two more races in 2011, and I looked at it as like, okay, more people wanted to support me with the wheelchair racing, and I saw the national funding opportunities, the educational, and the chance to make the Paralympics with that. Whereas wheelchair racing with and a chance to really potentially win at the big stage. Whereas with ATV racing, I was always fighting not to be dead last typically.
Right.
So it was this and the best thing is on a wheelchair, if I break something with the exception of the frame or the wheels, my biggest expense is $125, $135 tire typically.
Mm-hmm.
With as ATV racing, it might be the smallest expense.
Yeah, $125, maybe one tire. But you said some of those chairs are like crazy. Didn't you tell me about a chair that's made by Honda, like an all carbon fiber one? It's like $20,000.
It's $24,000 and $30,000 before wheels.
That's an expensive one to break.
Yeah, mine is my hybrid carbon OX, carbon GPX. With the back wheels, because the back wheels are universal, cost me after the wiring fees, not including the flight to go get fitted and to go pick it up in Japan, was $8,100 Canadian. You throw in the wheels, that would have been over 10 grand Canadian. You throw in the flights, that would have been like 13 grand close to it.
Unbelievable, man. I think any sport.
That's why trust me, I justify that cost.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess any sport you get into like the elite tiers, and it's just everything's expensive, man.
Oh yeah.
So you started doing the wheelchair training and everything, and like, how did that start off? Did you like it right away, or I know you said you were doing basketball for a little bit and hockey and stuff after your accident and everything. You were trying to find a sport that fit you. Did wheelchair racing just take off? Like you knew that's what you wanted to do, or was it a struggle?
Well, like in 2008, right around the corner of the fall starting, I had to go see a specialist in the city of Halifax and I decided after the appointment go get some food, but I didn't want to drive my truck in Halifax and try to find an accessible parking spot. So I just wheeled to Starbucks because it was the closest place with a ramp. Because Halifax, to be honest, is not the most. My small town is more accessible than Halifax, to be honest. Going after that one. So I was wearing a wheelchair basketball T-shirt, and Coach Yuli, he noticed I was wearing the wheelchair basketball T-shirt. He asked if I knew his prof, and I was like, yeah, and I was like, yeah, and he asked if I'd be interested in doing one of these fitness tests, and I was like, so is it until you go as hard as you can until you quit, puke, or die? And he's like, yeah, and I'm like, sign me up. So 6 months later, I did this test, and he asked me if I'd be interested in trying wheelchair racing because there's a potential for me. And at first, I didn't really want to try it because that was, again, what the diagnosing doctor told me I should be doing.
Right.
So, and I said I just don't like being told what I should be doing. But he convinced me, and 2 months later, I came out, fell flat on my back, and I kind of just stuck with it since because I wanted to get better at it. And then I did my first race right after Unadilla, and that's when I slowly got hooked. And then I just wanted to try, like, wait a couple more years to see what sport I really wanted to stick to. And after that summer of 2011, when I knew I needed to sell the ATV to the 450 to get out of debt, like I said, that was the other reason why I had to sell it. I said to myself, Paralympics is kind of like a smaller window. ATV racing, I can still go and race, and the window is not really going to ever close as quick, I should say. And again, it was like the closest race for me at that point would be in a 6-hour drive. And hopefully the track going was still cool with me, being the fact that I got strapped in that thing. Whereas the wheelchair racing, I might have to drive like maybe 10, 15 minutes to a race, pay my race fee, and away I start ahead of the runners in the case of a road race so I don't run them over, and away I go.
Wait, and you were telling me the other day about your mile times and everything, which was really incredible. Could you go over some of your times, like in comparison, for people that run and everything? I mean, you're running or rolling at extremely fast paces.
Yeah. So, for example, my 100 meters, so my 100 and 400 is going to be definitely slower than the top runners in the world, and I'm getting there I'm on the verge of beating or breaking or being faster than the running world record. So for the 800, and my 1500 meters faster than the running world record, but slower than the wheelchair. So my 100 meter right now is 15:65 on a personal best level, and to go to Paralympics, I'll need like a 15:3 or better. The 400 meter, because the 200 meter is not the Paralympic event, for most wheelchair categories. So our category, before I keep going down the times, categories are based on your mobility level. So I'm at a level where we're all paralyzed, the chest down, with no ab function, up to the 100 meters. So my 400 meter is 52:65, and I need to go to Paralympics at under 51, or I say potentially under 50, or under 52, under 51 seconds potentially. But the world record for that is now down to, in my class, is down to 46 something. The 800 meter, mine is a minute 44:29, and to go to Paralympics, I'll need about under a minute 41, potentially under a minute 40. And the world record for that is under 92 seconds.
Wow.
And then like I say, my 1500, I'm not focused on the Paralympics because I'm still learning that race necessarily, but I'm down to under 3:17. And the world record is 2:51 something. And the world leading time last year was like a 2:53, I think.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I'm officially done under 4 minute 5 or under 4 minute mile. My official 5 mile right now is like 21:21, but I know people that like the top road racers, they would smoke my 5 mile. My 10K officially is 25:45. Unofficially, I've done a 24:10 in training, and I'm hoping this year I go under 25 minutes. I don't care what the time is, as long as it's under 25 minutes. My half marathon typically is in training between 57 to 59 minute splits. I've done a 54:10. I'm hoping to go down to 50 minutes or less in the split. And then my one and only marathon is 56:10. But if I get back, I'm hoping to get back in the marathon this year, so I'm just trying to get it under an hour 50. But the top times in the marathon, depending on the course, Bumson record 78 minutes flat almost, and the official world record is just over 80 minutes. And as long as you go under 90 minutes, you're considered pretty fast.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. Do you have any crazy wheelchair stories, like racing?
Okay, I got a few. One is, I'd say the one time I did a road race, the Peachtree Road Race in Atlanta, which is held on Independence Day. It brings about 55,000 runners.
Wow.
And probably about 30 to 50 wheelchair racers. When I was going down the finish line hill, I saw the little mat that you typically got to step and roll over. And I'm going down the hill at like 40 kilometers an hour at least. And I'm just like trying to brake because all I could picture was if I hit this, like just from ATV experience, if I hit this bump at 40 kilometers an hour, I'm thinking I might go airborne, right? And I just tilted like back and forth like this, did not crash, and then I was told by the previous board, he said, Ben, just hit it straight on next time, and it'll be fun. And honestly, when I watched other guys hit it straight on years later, the rear ends will come up, but not that high. And then, actually, a training story. I was doing a fundraising ride ready for a marathon in 2016, the one and only marathon. And this hill climb was a pain in the ass, to put it nicely. but my sponsor forgot to tell me how steep the downhill was. So he said, Ben, there's going to be some bump, like they're covered culvert, like the pavement, and they're bumpy. So the faster my hand goes, the worse it's going to get. And I hit up about 51.1 kilometers an hour down this hill, so over 30 miles an hour. And thankfully I slowed down to about 40, or I was coasting down at this point, 46.6. And his hand's going like this fast as I can. The one time when I used to run GoPro all the time for my training, I had it not running, and I wish I did. Picture human missile.
Do you have brakes?
Yes. So we have, there's the front brake, which you feather typically so you don't flatten your front tire because there's only like that much meat on your front tire.
Okay.
And or if you're in an emergency situation, it's hard to do with the hard gloves I run now. But with the soft gloves at the time, you just grab the rear wheels and push right on the disc wheel.
So you are the brake. You literally are the brake.
Under the brake, the clutch, the transmission, and the engine all in one. So wheelchair racing is not racing wheelchairs aren't bikes. They're a version of a running shoe. So it's just there's only one gear, and that's the size of your push beam. So I'm almost like the equivalent of a BMX bike.
That was probably crazy, man, when you were going 30 miles an hour. And you're low to the ground, too, so it probably felt even faster.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, like, like in the Boston Marathon, I've talked to some friends. That first downhill, guys are up about 76 kilometers an hour in a pack.
I'm imagining you're in front of all the runners and everything.
Yeah. So any major road race, any big road race, like local ones, you'll get like a 2 to 5 minute head start.
Mm-hmm.
With all the major races, like whether it's a 10K or a full marathon, you get a half-hour head start.
Yeah, because I can only imagine running in the Boston Marathon and having you coming up on my tail end, dude.
You've been screaming to get the hell out of my way.
You're breaking the sound barrier.
Well, actually, funny story about that. I did a local 10K a few years back, and it was 2 5K loops. And I didn't realize how many people registered until I heard 800, and I'm like, 2 5K loops, 800 people, oh crap. So 7K in is when I started catching up with all the majority of the runners.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this down, and I'm going down this downhill for the second time. And previously, I was hitting about 40K on my own, right? Like just not sprinting, but just letting it coast, no one in my way.
Right.
I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, track, get out of the way, left, everything, right? And half the people are wearing headphones, which I'm against in road racing.
Because, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Because in track, like when I do indoor track at home, the amount of people at home is hit because they're wearing their headphones and don't hear me yelling track or get out, like when they're entering the next thing in the track or in my lane that I have booked is insane, but it happens, whatever, right? Well, here's the kicker about that downhill. There was a spectator with a Run Forrest Run sign. Doesn't realize how fast I'm going. He's coming out to cheer me on. I'm like that close to hitting him at over 20 miles an hour. Like 22, 23 miles an hour. I don't think he realized how fast I was going down that hill.
Yeah. At like knee level, too. He probably would have taken him out, man.
Well, yeah, and he would have probably caused an injury and potentially rode off my chair and be like, all right, buddy. Because my chair at the time was a $5,000 chair. I'm like, all right, we're going to your bank now. I don't care how much money you have. You're going to take it alone.
Oh, man. Well, dude, you definitely have Go ahead.
And then as far as like those are some of the wild ones, but the really cool ones I'd say are I did get to race in front of 30,000 people, which is on YouTube, at the London Anniversary Games. I've represented Canada twice at the Para Am. Last Para Am, I was supposed to win medals, but that didn't really happen. So, because of that, even though I was on an idea for a mechanic, like a better part for wheel hubs, it's kind of inspired me to get things going. And hopefully, after this Tokyo Paralympics is over with, we'll have that part ready to test and hit the market. I'm being tight-lipped about it because I don't want anyone to, get in on that part.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Well, it's definitely a super inspirational story, dude. And I'm sure you could tell stories about all this stuff for hours. You and I could have some really good talks. And luckily, The way this worked out, it's kind of been nice being able to talk to you here and there this past week. Um, there's a couple questions I wanted to ask, and I know I did already ask these questions to you already because of our previous interview. But before I go ahead and ask those questions, is there anything else that you want to add? Any kind of like crazy stories or anything?
Um, I'd say actually last summer we were racing in Quebec City, and I ended up taking a lot of what we call the floor of the lead for the 1500. And a friend of mine, he kept rubbing the inside of my rear wheel with his front wheel, and it didn't bother me, right? And at the end of the race, he apologized, like, dude, I raced motocross for 5 years, paralyzed, not paralyzed. What you've done is like minor.
Yeah. Seriously. You probably didn't even notice it.
I've been actually the one time, and it was after my paralysis, I almost got a hole shot. I ended up getting punted onto, didn't hurt me or anything. I got punted onto the top of a berm and hung up. So it took about a minute for spectators to realize I'm stuck in who it was and that I can't move. So I went from first or second to last like that because someone put me on the berm into the berm and had me stuck.
Oh, dude. Probably like, dude, why is he not getting off and pushing his bike back in?
And then everyone's like, oh shit!
It's Ben.
Yep.
Well, dude, before I ask you these questions, like I said before, dude, you do have a very inspirational story, dude. And you didn't say it this time around, but I know you said last time with that jump that you hit, how it wasn't groomed quite properly. And you said to me that you would never blame the guy that groomed the track or the track owner or anything like that. And just the fact that you take complete ownership of everything that's happened in life, and you're not pointing the finger and making blame, and you've just completely taken control of your life and pushed yourself in a direction that's obviously very positive, and just rolling with the punches, man, because you seem like a really happy dude, and you're extremely, extremely inspirational, dude. So I really, really admire that, and just that like go get it, hardworking attitude, and the stuff that you said about like when the guy was asking you to come train for the wheelchair stuff, and you said if you're either gonna throw up or die, like that kind of mentality of just all or nothing, balls to the wall, dude. I have so much respect for that, dude, and I just want to let you know.
Oh yeah, thanks, man. And that's the kind of reputation I get on the international stage. Because story about that, like we did the first time I went under 330 in the 1500 in 2018. One of my coach's race plan was to get second or third in the draft, like in the pack right off the get go.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up being, when I was trying to merge into lane 1, and I was out in lane 8. By the time we got to the first turn, almost to the first turn, I had no space, and I just had to make the decision right then and there, just go. So I led for the first 600 meters, and then 4 guys passed me, and I'm like, oh crap, right, whatever. I'll just keep pushing my brains out and see what happens. And I eventually ended up still finished 4th, but I passed one guy and another guy. Anyways, it ended up working out into my favor, and my coach was really happy, and some friends that are 1500 meter like specialists were super impressed with the way I went out. So a week later, we had to go do another 1500 meter race, and for some reason I was put in a slightly slower heat. Not a big deal, but it happens, right? Still pushed a pretty solid race, and one of my Japanese friends, he goes, Ben, are you going out hard again? And I'm like, I want a time. What do you think? So everyone got the gist, because those guys saw me how I raced the 400, how I raced the 800. I mean, in my opinion, if you're going for time, you got to go. I mean, if we're just out for a medal, then yeah, you don't, in the 800 and above, you don't need to go balls to the wall. But if you're trying to get a qualifying time or a time that helps with your financial funding from your NFL or anything like that, you got to go. Yeah. You got to be able to hold on.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how I compare ATV racing with wheelchair racing. It is safer to an extent because the only gear we have realistically is a helmet. So I mean, the crashes aren't going to put you in a worse situation necessarily, but the crashes still suck. You still get to draft. You still got to go get in that mix if you're drafting. You still have that strong start, and you got to be able to finish as strong or stronger than what you started.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't think I've years tired on an ATV except for Red Bud because of how choppy, how rough that track is, as I've ever been at during most of my workouts.
Yeah, and you've got some crazy workouts, dude. I've seen some of the videos that you sent me. But yeah, you definitely have the right mentality for pushing as hard as you do, man.
Thank you.
So before I end this, I just wanted to run these 2 questions by you here. On your bad days, what methods do you use to bring up the mood?
I recognize that it's just the day, and it could be a lot worse. That's the first thing, or I can have it a lot worse. I might have to reach out to a friend here or there, but I try to keep that to a limit. That way, I'm just not like because I don't want to like make them feel like I have to depend on them necessarily. I mean, I love Metallica, Slayer, Anthrax, Pantera, Megadeth, Ozzy, Motorhead. The list goes on. That helps out. And like I say, other than training, just watching sports. Unfortunately, I don't have the riding outlet, but because I take with all the training, that's just the same kind of outlet. And I said super competitive. Watching a good comedy is always good too, right? Because laughter is a good medicine.
Very true. Very true. And the other question I have for you is, what advice would you give to anybody who's in a similar situation to you, or even somebody who's able-bodied that's thinking about taking up a sport and just isn't quite making that final step to deciding whether or not to do it?
All you can do is with the Parasport case, usually clubs or whatever will have spare chairs for people to try out. So that's a bonus there. So just try it out and see if you like it. I mean, with someone that's able-bodied, I mean, it's a little bit different, but I mean, usually in the case of ATV riding or racing, someone's got if someone is interested in trying it out, they likely saw it through their friend. So just ask if you can take your friend's machine for a quick 5-minute, 10-minute rip and see if you like it or not. And if you like it, and I mean, if the machine's a little too much for you, there's lots of machines out there that are suited for your skill level. So you got to try it, because I'm a believer in do it versus regretting and missing out.
Right.
And that was kind of my thing. Like when I did weigh out the options of no longer racing ATVs versus wheelchair racing, is I wanted to win a race, but at the end of the day, I proved my point that for all the people that said I was never going to be able to do it again or never hit the motocross track again, I sure as hell proved them wrong. So I'm always satisfied with that.
Yeah, you absolutely did, man. Absolutely. So just give it a try. That's good advice, man. Definitely, I agree with that, man. Not sitting back and just letting your life pass by. Well, dude, I appreciate everything, man. You have a super inspirational story, like I said. And I did want to mention, you said you have T-shirts that you sell, correct?
Yes, I'm actually wearing one right now. So I'm not sure if you can see what it says.
Yep, harder than you think.
Yeah, so my brand is Get After Sports, which will be part of my wheelchair racing president when I start that as well. And if you go on Instagram or Facebook, you can find the company. If you're interested in buying a shirt, just hit me up and we'll figure out details, because I'm still getting a few things set up, because, of course, with the training and stuff, I've just been, this being the Paralympic year, I want to get the business going, but I also have to focus on what's still the main priority, and that's representing Canada at the Paralympics this year.
Right. Well, all right, Ben. I appreciate everything, dude. I appreciate you taking the time twice now to do this. It's been it's been tough getting together to do this. Hopefully this time it records. So I appreciate everything, man.
Welcome. I'm glad to do it.
All right, Ben. Take it easy, man.
You too. See ya.